Imagine being kidnapped on your daughter's birthday, locked in a room with no windows, no answers, and nothing but a TV to keep you sane. For 15 long years, that's all. Dae-soo has fists against the wall, journals filled with names, and a hole scratched in the dark. Then one day, without warning, he's released in a suitcase, in a crisp suit, on a rooftop, with a stranger's life hanging by a thread. But his freedom isn't a gift, it's the start of a crueler game. Because the man who stole his life isn't finished with him yet. If you're hooked already, don't blink. This story only gets darker. Smash that like button, hit subscribe, and drop a comment if you think you could survive 15 years locked away. Now, let's dive into the madness of Oldboy. The movie opens with Dae-soo, a middle-aged man arrested after a drunken outburst. Even at the station, he remains unruly, demanding to be released because it's his daughter's birthday. Before long, his friend Yo-hwan shows up and bails him out. Outside, Dae-soo calls home, promising his daughter that he will return soon with her gift. Yo-hwan takes the phone and wishes the girl a happy birthday. But when Dae-soo's wife asks to speak to him again, Yo-hwan realizes that Dae-soo has vanished. He searches for him, but finds no trace of his friend. The scene shifts to Dae-soo, now locked inside a windowless room. He has no idea who his captors are or why he was taken. He is fed through a small trapdoor, and every attempt he makes to beg or fight for his release is ignored. Whenever his captors want to cut his hair, change his clothes, or clean the room, they knock him out with gas. His only connection to the outside world is through the television. One day while watching the news, Dae-soo learns that his wife has been murdered. Evidence at the scene, fingerprints and blood, points directly to him as the killer. His captors had planted items he recently used, such as a drinking glass, to frame him. This pushes him deeper into misery, and soon he begins hallucinating. Time passes. Months turn into years. Dae-soo's mental state continues to deteriorate, and he makes several attempts to end his life, but his captors won't just let him die in peace. To fight the boredom and preserve his sanity, he begins keeping a journal, listing every person who might hold a grudge against him. He also trains his body, practicing punches and strikes against the wall, preparing for a day when he might face his captors. After 6 years of confinement, he begins carving a hole through the wall with a metal chopstick. Over time, he manages to create an opening large enough for his hand to fit through. This gives him hope, and he convinces himself that his escape is near. But when he hears footsteps approaching, he quickly drags the bed across to cover it. Before he can finish, gas seeps into the room and knocks him out. While he lies barely conscious, a woman enters and hypnotizes him. After 15 years in confinement, Dae-soo is finally released. He wakes to find himself in a suitcase. When he comes out, sunlight scorches his eyes, forcing him to squint as he adjusts to the brightness. When his vision clears, he realizes he is standing on a rooftop, dressed in a crisp new suit with a watch on his wrist. His journals have been placed in the box with him. He sees a man sitting on the ledge holding a dog. The man tells Dae-soo not to stop him from jumping. For Dae-soo, it is the first human contact he has had in 15 years. He grips the stranger's hand, presses it against his own face, and confirms that this is real. The man asks even if he's no better than a beast. Doesn't he have the right to live? Dae-soo smiles faintly and repeats the words back to him. As the man leans back to fall, Dae-soo snatches his necktie and urges him to hear his story first before taking his life. After recounting his story, Dae-soo collects his journals and walks away. The stranger tries to speak, wanting to share his own story too, and the reason for wanting to kill himself. But Dae-soo ignores him. Moments later, the man topples from the rooftop and crashes onto a car below. Now free, Dae-soo wanders the streets in silence and awe, as so much has changed over the years. He avoids family and friends, knowing he is still wanted as the prime suspect in his wife's murder. On the way, he crosses paths with a group of young men. He takes a cigarette from one of them, provoking a fight. Using only his fists, he tests the combat skills he had practiced for years in captivity and defeats them all. Later, while resting outside a seafood restaurant, a homeless man approaches. He hands Dae-soo a wallet stuffed with cash and a cell phone, warning him not to ask questions because he knows nothing more. Dae-soo examines the wallet, then steps inside the restaurant. He sits at the counter and orders something alive to eat. The server, Mi-do, catches his attention. He remembers her as a contestant from a televised cooking competition. Just then, his phone rings. On the line, a man asks if Dae-soo is pleased with his new suit. Realizing it is the person behind his incarceration, Dae-soo demands answers and begins guessing who it might be. The caller tells him his identity is irrelevant. Instead, he urges Dae-soo to reflect on his past if he wants to understand why he was locked away. The mysterious caller urges Dae-soo to find him quickly before ending the call. Moments later, Mi-do sets a live octopus in front of him. Instead of letting her slice it, Dae-soo grabs the creature and eats it whole. Mi-do watches with concern, placing her hand over his to check if he is all right. As soon as he finishes, he collapses. When he regains consciousness, he is in Mi-do's apartment recovering from a fever. She explains that the medicine she gave him worked. While heading to the bathroom, she warns that the door lock is broken and reminds him she has a knife in case he tries anything. Despite the warning, Dae-soo enters the toilet and forces himself on her, but Mi-do resists and pushes him away. Dae-soo prepares to leave, but she stops him, telling him she understands him. She admits she is interested in being with him too, but only when she is ready, since it would be her first time. Not long after, Dae-soo begins searching for his estranged daughter with Mi-do's help. They discover she was adopted years ago by a couple in Sweden. With no way to reach her, Dae-soo gives up the search and shifts his focus to finding the man who orchestrated his incarceration. One day, Mi-do receives a message online from someone using the name Evergreen. When Dae-soo looks closer, Evergreen directs the conversation toward him, asking how he is adjusting to the bigger prison. Mi-do explains that she has been chatting with Evergreen for a while, mostly about sushi. This makes Dae-soo suspicious, and he begins to doubt her loyalty. Deciding he must continue alone, he tracks down the restaurant that supplied the food he was fed during captivity. He follows a delivery man to the very building where he was once locked away. Inside, he ambushes a guard with a hammer and discovers a criminal business where people can pay to have others secretly imprisoned. He confronts the man in charge, Mr. Park, and brutally tortures him by pulling out his teeth with the hammer's claw. Under pressure, Mr. Park admits he never met the client face to face, but he did record their conversations. Dae-soo seizes the recording and attempts to leave, but outside the office, he is surrounded by a gang of men. Armed only with his hammer and bare hands, Dae-soo fights his way through them. Even after being stabbed in the back and losing strength, he continues to strike until he disables them all. Exhausted, he stumbles out of the building, pulls the knife from his back, and collapses. A stranger approaches and helps him up. The man, Lee Woo-jin, places Dae-soo in a taxi, gives the driver an address, and calls Dae-soo by name, telling him to take care. Injured and weak, Dae-soo can only stare at him as the cab drives away. Back home, he listens to the recording taken from Mr. Park. On the tape, Mr. Park and the client discuss how long the imprisonment should last, as well as the types of drugs available to control him in case of schizophrenia. When Mr. Park asks what Dae-soo did to deserve such a sentence, the client simply replies that Dae-soo talks too much. The next day, he visits Yo-hwan at his cyber cafe. Yo-hwan is overwhelmed to see him alive after so many years. Dae-soo explains his story and gives him the tape, asking if he can recognize the voice of the man behind it. Yo-hwan fails to recognize the man, but he helps Dae-soo track down Evergreen online. Evergreen taunts him again. Convinced that Mi-do is secretly working with Evergreen, Dae-soo storms back to her apartment and begins torturing her for answers. While he is pressing her for information, Yo-hwan calls. He tells Dae-soo that Evergreen's real name is Soo, and that he lives in the building directly across from Mi-do's apartment. Dae-soo hurries to the building and meets Evergreen, who is with his bodyguard, Mr. Han. To his shock, Evergreen is Woo-jin, the same stranger who helped him the previous night. He turns out to be the man behind Dae-soo's captivity. Woo-jin gives him a challenge. He must discover the reason for his incarceration within 5 days, or Mi-do will be killed. If Dae-soo succeeds, Woo-jin promises to take his own life. Furious, Dae-soo lunges at him, but Mr. Han easily blocks the attack. Woo-jin warns that killing him will only ensure Dae-soo never learns the truth. He explains that he wears a pacemaker, controlled by a remote, which he can shut off at any time if Dae-soo attempts to torture him. Before leaving, Woo-jin urges Dae-soo to pursue vengeance as a way to cope with the loss of his wife and daughter. He then cruelly reminds him that he left Mi-do tied in the apartment with the door left open. Typical of him to not protect the women in his life. This enrages Dae-soo, but his anger turns to panic when he hears her scream. He races back and finds Mr. Park and his men assaulting Mi-do. Dae-soo fights back, but the gang overpowers him. Mr. Park prepares to extract his teeth with a hammer, just as Dae-soo once did to him. The attack is interrupted by a phone call, and soon after Mr. Han arrives carrying a briefcase filled with money. He offers it to Mr. Park, who accepts the payment and agrees to leave Dae-soo and Mi-do unharmed. Before leaving, Dae-soo threatens to cut off Mr. Park's hand for assaulting Mi-do. Once the gang is gone, Dae-soo and Mi-do escape together. On their way to a motel, Mi-do sings a song that signals she is ready to be intimate with him. They spend a passionate night together, but as they sleep, gas seeps into the room. Woo-jin enters and leaves a package. When they open it, they find Mr. Park's severed hand inside. Dae-soo realizes that Woo-jin has been monitoring them through hidden devices. He quickly goes to a shop to track down the bug and destroy it. Later, Dae-soo and Mi-do visit Yo-hwan's internet cafe to dig deeper into Woo-jin's background. As Mi-do searches online, Dae-soo and Yo-hwan piece together that Woo-jin was part of their high school class. Dae-soo and Mi-do then head to the school, where they look through the yearbook for the class of '79. There, Dae-soo confirms that Woo-jin was once his classmate. He calls Yo-hwan to ask if he remembers anything about him. Yo-hwan admits he doesn't, but Dae-soo then asks about a female student named Soo-ah. Yo-hwan explains that Soo-ah died after he transferred to another school, describing her as a promiscuous girl. Unbeknownst to him, Woo-jin is listening in at the cafe. Enraged by Yo-hwan's words, Woo-jin kills him and reveals to Dae-soo that Soo-ah was his sister. Determined to uncover more, Dae-soo seeks out Mr. Park for details about his imprisonment. Mr. Park admits to Dae-soo that he had once drugged the water to make him more susceptible to hypnosis. He agrees to keep Mi-do safe while Dae-soo goes to confront Woo-jin. Not long after, another classmate reveals that it was Yo-hwan who spread the rumors about Soo-ah's promiscuity. The revelation triggers Dae-soo's memory. He recalls accidentally witnessing Woo-jin and Soo-ah in an intimate act during their school years, and he remembers telling Yo-hwan about it shortly before transferring to another school. Following the clues Woo-jin deliberately left behind, Dae-soo manages to find where he lives. He confronts him. Woo-jin then reveals the truth behind his sister's death. Soon after Dae-soo left the school, rumors began spreading that Soo-ah was pregnant. The gossip grew so relentless that she eventually started to believe it herself. Overwhelmed, she ended her life. Woo-jin blames Dae-soo for fueling the story, but Dae-soo fires back, accusing him of being responsible for pushing his sister towards suicide out of fear their illicit relationship would be exposed. Ignoring the accusation, Woo-jin calmly shifts the focus. He explains how he orchestrated the meeting between Dae-soo and Mi-do with the help of a hypnotist. He then hands him a box containing a photo album. As Dae-soo flips through the pages, he discovers to his horror that Mi-do is his daughter. Shaken, disgusted, and enraged by the discovery, Dae-soo lunges at Woo-jin. Mr. Han intercepts the attack, and a violent struggle breaks out. Dae-soo manages to wound him badly, but even while seriously injured, Mr. Han overpowers him and holds him down. After watching the fight drag on, Woo-jin loses patience. In frustration, he shoots Mr. Han. Woo-jin further reveals to Dae-soo that Mr. Park has been working for him all along. Their supposed rivalry was only a ruse to mislead him. At that very moment, Mi-do in Mr. Park's custody is handed a box and urged to open it. Realizing the danger, Dae-soo frantically calls her, pleading not to open the box under any circumstances. He begs her to wait, promising he'll come to save her. Desperate, he turns to Woo-jin, begging him not to expose the truth to Mi-do. He offers to do anything, be whatever Woo-jin wants, even his dog. Dropping to his knees, Dae-soo licks Woo-jin's shoes and barks like a dog in submission. Woo-jin says nothing, only laughing at the humiliating display. When his pleas fail, Dae-soo cuts off his tongue in a final act of desperation to prove his sincerity. At last, Woo-jin relents. He calls Mr. Park, instructing him to keep the box closed and not reveal the secret to Mido. Satisfied, Woo-jin departs, leaving Dae-soo with the remote control to his pacemaker. But when Dae-soo presses the button, it doesn't stop his heart. Instead, it plays an audio recording of him and Mido making out, breaking him even further. As Woo-jin steps into the elevator, the truth of his past unfolds. In a flashback, Soo-ah hangs from a dam's edge. Woo-jin tries to save her, but she chooses to let go. Despite his elaborate revenge, Woo-jin realizes he can never escape the torment of his past. Hollow and broken, he presses a gun to his head and ends his life. Time passes. In a quiet, snowy countryside, Dae-soo writes a letter to the hypnotist, recounting his story and begging for help. She admits she had no intention of aiding him, until the final line of his letter convinced her. "Even though I am no more than a beast, don't I still have the right to live?" The hypnotist warns Dae-soo that the procedure could go wrong and distort his memory. Despite the risk, he chooses to proceed. She begins the session explaining that his mind will split into two selves. One will live unaware of the truth about Mido, while the other, the monster, will carry the burden of the secret. In his subconscious vision, the monster begins walking away, aging a year with every step until it reaches 70 and disappears. In the aftermath, Dae-soo awakens alone in the snow. Mido arrives and wraps her arms around him, trying to warm him. She tells him that she loves him. Dae-soo smiles at her words, but the smile gradually fades into an expression of pain and misery. And that's the nightmare of Oldboy. A story of revenge so twisted it leaves you questioning who the real prisoner was. If this recap shook you, make sure to subscribe for more mind-bending Asian movie recaps. Drop a comment with your thoughts on that final twist, and share this with a friend who needs their jaw dropped. Until next time, don't talk too much.